Hello, welcome to Berks Nature and You. My name is Tammy Shimp. I'm the Vice President for Development and Community Relations at Berks Nature. We are busy protecting nature every day. It's what we do as a nonprofit organization. Perhaps the most critical piece of nature in our community is a healthy water supply. This is why I have the Executive Director of the Western Berks Water Authority here with us today, Chip Bilger. Welcome, Chip.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thanks for joining us. So we work with a lot of partners to help keep water supplies clean and help educate the public about them. Western Berks Water is a big partner, large business. Can you tell me a little bit more about where you're located, where you get your water from that you serve to your customers?
Sure. Western Berks is very unique. We're a wholesale supplier, which means that we take the water out of Blue Marsh Lake, actually about a quarter-mile downstream of the lake, out of the Tulpehocken Creek.
Okay.
And we serve, I think, a total of 14 different municipalities. So we sell the water in bulk to the municipalities that in turn then sell it to the end user. So we're very unique from the perspective of that we don't necessarily deal directly with the customers. So the authority was created back in the mid to late 60s by the boroughs of Shillington, West Reading, and Wyomissing. And from there, the authority has expanded to other municipalities around in western Berks County. So we serve parts of, I'm probably going to miss some, but parts of Byrne Township, parts of Spring Township, parts of Lower Heidelberg Township, some of Wernersville. We then go to parts of, in addition to Shillington, Shillington serves the borough of Moulton and also parts of Coomeroo Township. So as you can see, it's a vast amount of municipalities that we serve.
Wow. About how many gallons leave your plant every day?
Approximately 4 million gallons a day, and it's approximately 35,000 customers.
Wow. So that's really interesting to me because I often say if you don't know where your water comes from, see who you pay your water bill to.
Correct.
But somebody could pay their water bill to, make one up, Shillington.
Or Shillington, correct.
And that wouldn't really tell them who their water supplier is or where it's coming from.
That is correct. You are correct in that assumption. It's somewhat confusing.
Yeah.
So obviously we work very closely with the municipalities that we serve, and we do things like the Consumer Confidence Report. That's something very important that everybody gets on an annual basis. You can track back the water from that Consumer Confidence Report. That's available typically by mail, online. There's lots of ways to get that Consumer Confidence Report.
Okay. Well, I saw it on your website
There you
when
go.
I did my homework.
That's good.
So, again, I can't encourage listeners enough to get online or just start doing a little bit of homework on your own. Figure out where your water comes from, the water you use in your home every day or at your place of business. It's a big part of our lives, and as we just learned, there's a lot of different ways it can get to you. And it's important for you to know where it's coming from. Is it coming from the Tulpehocken Creek?
Right. What's interesting about the Blue Marsh Lake project, it's about 6,000 acres. And it was a U.S. Army Corps project where they made the dam, and basically it's a man-made lake. And what surrounds the property are game lands and a lot of agricultural properties. So it's unique from our perspective. We don't own the property, but it's controlled by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. There's Pennsylvania game lands around that. So what's unique about our process is that unlike, for example, the city of Reading, they control their property around their lake. We don't. So it creates additional challenges for us in protecting the source water, and it makes it even more important to talk about source water protection and controlling what happens in the lands that pretty much run into the lake, which is where the water comes from.
Right, right. Well, and I know we've been working with you on the source water protection plan, and for our listeners, could you just talk real briefly about what is a source water protection plan and why should they care if their provider has one?
People don't realize that in the water business, we really are manufacturers. We produce a finished product. The source water protection plan is a way to control the raw material, which is the raw water. So it's very important as you understand the importance of making a finished product that the raw materials are important to that end product. So the source water protection plan is really controlling the raw materials through controlling what happens to the raw water before it comes into the plant. If the water is better coming into the plant, that means we have to do less to it to make it drinkable. So theoretically, if you have a good, strong source water protection plan, you can reduce your chemicals that you use, and the quality of the water coming out of the plant theoretically would be better because the raw materials coming in or the raw water coming in would be of a higher quality.
That's a great way to explain it. I like that. So, and do the source water protection plans look at you know, what would happen in the case of an emergency? And
sure. When you think about our area really is if you take Route 183 going north and 422 going west, that pretty much is our watershed. People try to think about what that is, and it's pretty easy for me to describe that because I got two main roads that everybody in Berks County knows where they are. So our roads are 183 going north and 422 going west. So you can imagine what could happen in that area. Lots of transportation, tank trucks. There's lots of rail in that area, and of course the agriculture we spoke about earlier. You know, cows and agriculture, and we have a huge problem with actually geese that actually love to hang out at Blue Marsh, and they can be problematic also.
And how can they be problematical?
Well, just like anybody else, geese eat and then they poop. So, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, that kind of stuff is something that ends up in the water, and once again, we've got to treat that. So, you know, it could be anything from, you know, agriculture and the stuff they use to fertilize the ground. It could be animal feces that end up in the lake. It could be wastewater plants that, once again, you know, have effluents and end up in the Blue Marsh Lake area from any place upstream. So that's what we're concerned about in our business. What could happen to the raw water? Right,
and how to keep it out of there.
And how to keep it out of there.
Well, I know we've partnered for many years, and we really enjoy that partnership. And we try to help educate the public on a lot of these issues, and most importantly, what people can do on their own to help keep our whole community's watershed and subsequent drinking water supplies healthy.
Sure.
And some of the things we've done with you are, I know we've had students to the property planting trees.
Yes.
So the simple task of planting a tree is a best management practice. It's something that you do that helps improve your property and then ultimately the water supply. What are some other best management practices that some of our viewers could try on their own?
Yeah, one of the things that's important when you think about source water protection is kind of like that pay it forward thing. So for example, my customers don't really live in my protection zone. They're downstream. Okay, so what's interesting is that they're not really concerned about what the people that are in my watershed don't necessarily drink my water. Right. So when you think about that, when we protect our water in our watershed and my customers, they're actually helping the people downstream of where our water plant is. So if you think about downstream from Berks County to Topeka Creek, you're talking about the Schuylkill River. So it's anything along the Schuylkill River, starting with Birdsboro, all the way down to Pottstown, and all the way eventually to Philadelphia. So what they can do is, if you think about anything that ends up on the ground, or anything that you could do in your house that it doesn't end up in a wastewater stream, in a stormwater drain, for example, that theoretically will end up in the creek or end up downstream and potentially contaminate not only source water situations like ours, but groundwater. There's lots of wells between your typically homes in Berks County to where people have wells that they draw out of the ground. So, and things that end up on the ground will eventually end up in the groundwater and eventually run off or end up in the surface water. So you think about it, you know, would you dump paint, in the street and eventually have it run into stormwater? No. So you think about just the basic idea of just don't put things on the ground that shouldn't be on the ground. That's probably the most important thing. It's protection of the source water and dealing with household chemicals, household waste that you don't want. Just make sure you dispose of it properly. That's probably the single best advice I can give to the normal homeowner.
Right. Keep it out of the water
Correct.
supply.
Absolutely correct.
And then water conservation, of course, is a different conversation, but something we always encourage as well. And that's a lot of common sense, turn the water off when you're brushing your teeth type of thing, and help conserve the resource that...
Yeah, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on how you look at it. We're very, very fortunate in Berks County because we don't have a capacity problem. We've done the work. I'm the chairman of the Berks County Water and Sewer Association. So we're tracking capacity versus usage. And the good news about Berks County is we have plenty of capacity. So we're not in a California type situation where it's very important we control the amount of water we use, because we have plenty of capacity to sell, which is good news. The bad news is, from a conservative perspective, it is going to get more and more difficult and going to be more valuable, so it's important to do that. But we are seeing declining water sales. Every time somebody buys a new wash machine or puts a new faucet in, they don't realize they are actually conserving water, because the new technology and the new appliances or plumbing fixtures is actually controlling the usage by the nature of the design of the new product. So we're seeing a decline in sales, I think, based mostly on, economic development has something to do with that, but the other thing is the new technology is conserving water.
Right, right. Well, thank you again for being here with us. We really value our partnerships with people like Chip and his whole team at Western Berks Water Authority to work together to help educate the public, protect the water supply, and really just raise awareness about this important resource.
Yeah, thank you. And once again, we value the partnership also. If it wasn't for Berks Nature, people we're working with the Berks County Water and Sewer Association and other partners we have, including other water providers in the county, we couldn't do what we're doing either. So the partnership is really working. That's the best message of the day. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Can't end on anything better than that. Thank you for joining us.
If you'd like to learn more about Berks Nature, please join us at www.berksnature.org.